is the most direct route to Houston through Fort Lauderdale, with layovers in Detroit, Vancouver, and Kalamazoo. So crack open a nice cold Bud Light, oh skipper of the skies. You for the fly and fly-by-night operation. Bud Light cigarette. Crash in front of us that is just passing by. It's the Quonset network of over 2,500 years coast to coast, you'll get service at point A to point B. Now the boss is continuing to communicate with the Red Bull aircraft. Here comes the Avenger, taking its position on the runway, about to be cleared for takeoff. This is Mark Simmons with the Heritage Flight Foundation Grumman TBM Avenger. It's painted in the original paint scheme as a World War II bomber aboard the USS aircraft carrier Block Island. Let's listen to the sound of this 1,700 horsepower Wright Cyclone 14-cylinder radial engine as they get ready to take off. It's a great sound. That's the sound of a radial engine. We'll hear a number of those throughout today, and we will also hear the sound of an inline, I should say a V12 engine in a P-51 Mustang a little bit later on. So since we're back in the days of, I'd say World War II, tell you what, let's do a little bit of listening, if you will, to some big band and Glenn Miller. As the Avenger taxied by down at show left, some of you saw the wings folded back. That was done in order to make room for more aircraft on the deck of the carrier. Folded straight out, the TBM Avenger has a wingspan of 54 feet. Now I'm going to turn this down and let you listen again just to the sound of that radial engine. About 270 miles per hour when it was up at about 15,000 feet high. Being 40 feet long on that pass that it just made, Mark Simmons was going by with the bomb bay door open. It could carry up to 2,000 pounds of bombs or one torpedo in its internal bomb bay. Former President George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41, was shot down flying an Avenger. Some of you may have heard similar sounds from engines from other airplanes in the past. If I told you that you're right, here's why. Here's why. This is the same engine that was used on the famed B-25 Mitchell bomber, built by North American Aviation. The B-25 Mitchell bomber was the type of aircraft used in the Doolittle raid on April 18, 1942, when Japan was attacked for the first time on its own soil in over 2,000 years. During the war, the Avenger was involved in seeking out enemy shipping and enemy U-boats, German submarines. The aircraft was designed by the Grumman Iron Works. Grumman also built the F-4F Wildcat, the F-6F Hellcat, the F-7F Tigercat, the F-8F Bearcat, two of which you will hear later today with the Horsemen. And one of the most famous of all the cats, the star of the movie, Top Gun, the F-14 Tomcat. To attack the Japanese Navy with its torpedo or its bomb. The Avenger had lots of staying power, and many Allied nations used the type long after the war. Some U.S. Navy Avengers were still on hand for transport duty during the Korean War in 1950 to 1953. Grumman created the shipboard aircraft. All of their aircraft were sturdy. They were tough. They could handle those incredibly punishing carrier landings, which were more like controlled crashes than they were landings.
This is small.
If you will, you might have called, some folks called this the torpedo truck. Pretty good there. You get to hear a little bit of the growl of the propeller in addition to that deep, throaty sound of that 1,700 horsepower Wright Cyclone engine. This airplane replaced the Douglas TBD Devastator as the Navy's torpedo bomber in the Pacific. Had the strength and power to do the job. But though it was designed by Grumman, Grumman was so busy building F-4F Wildcats and F-6F Hellcats that they had to hand off manufacture of a lot of these airplanes to another company. They were built, as we say, under license to another company, and that company was none other than General Motors, one of our premier sponsors of the show. General Motors produced four that were produced by Grumman. Depending on whose history book you read, there were 9,839 Avengers built. But most of them were built by General Motors.
He was the captain.
According to my sources, 7,546 were built by General Motors and the rest were built by Grumman. Having materiel, equipment, and aircraft produced by other companies was not uncommon during World War II.
He got gout in his foot and he was supposed to be...
Whatever had to be done was done to make sure that our boys at war were supported. The consolidated B-24 Liberator, which had a production run of over 18,000 aircraft, was built not only by Consolidated, but also by the Ford Motor Company up in Michigan. They turned out a little bit of saw a little wing-wag salute on that one. Saddled with the dangerous job of pushing through enemy fighter protection, dodging a barrage of gunfire, and releasing a torpedo at can't-miss range, the Avenger was well-armed and well-armored. If you don't have your cameras ready yet, get them ready, because this is the last pass before we bring the Avenger into land, I believe. By the end of the war, Avengers had sunk over 60 enemy ships, participated in the destruction of the world's largest battleship, the Yamato. They played a major role in the Allied victory during World War II. Only 145 are estimated to be in existence today. And of those 145, only around 40 or so are actually airworthy. So we're seeing a great flying example of one of the most important naval aircraft of all time, and one of a very few. It's from the Heritage Flight Foundation. It can be found at heritageflightfoundation.org. Last letter being the designator for the manufacturer of the airplane. Ron Simmons bringing it in for a landing. As you can see it down to the left, you may also see some other aircraft down there, red and gray. And those are the North American SNJ Texan trainers from the Geico Sky Tigers. Thank you, General Motors. For taking such good care in building a great airplane, and also for building the great cars we're driving this weekend. Thank you, General Motors, you've done good.
Effective range of 50 calories a mile and a half. It's like stopping cars.
It was June of 1943 that George H.W. Bush was the youngest naval aviator shot down in his Avenger in September of that year over a Pacific island. Another famous Avenger aviator was Paul Newman, who flew as a rear gunner. The Grumman Avenger, folding the wings back. Just think of the engineering that went on in folding those wings back. Again, to make room on the deck for more and more aircraft. Not only on the flight deck, but on the hangar deck below. Now.